If you've been following this series, you've watched me struggle with module development, getting stuck on policies, and nerding out about cloud projects. But I've realized I've never actually talked about why I'm building this program in the first place. So, what is the problem I'm trying to solve, and why does this matter to me so much? So, today, that's what we're doing. I'm going to share what I've been observing in our field, why I think we're losing too many good trauma therapists to burnout, and the 5 specific causes I keep seeing over and over again. If you've been following along, this is episode 4 of Building My Program series, where I share the behind-the-scenes process of how I'm developing the Transform Your Trauma Therapy Practice program, which is my 8-week business coaching program for trauma therapists. If we haven't met before, I'm Kristen, and I help trauma therapists recover from burnout and transform their practices into successful businesses they love. So let's talk about why I'm building this program. Because honestly, the why is what keeps me going when the development gets hard, when I'm questioning whether anyone will even want this, or when I'm wondering if I should just go back to filling my caseload instead of taking the risk. So I'll tell you why this matters to me. I've been a trauma therapist for over a decade now, and over the years, especially through consultation and teaching, I've seen something really concerning happening. I've watched incredibly skilled trauma therapists burn out and either leave trauma work or leave the field. And here's what I know to be true. The world needs trauma therapists. The demand for trauma-informed care has never been higher and more necessary. More people are seeking help for complex trauma, for developmental trauma, for experiences that require specialized skills to treat, and we're losing the clinicians that can actually do this work. And not because they're not good at it. Most of them are exceptional. They burn out because the way we've been taught how to run a private practice doesn't work for this kind of work, meaning trauma work. The traditional private practice model wasn't designed for the intensity of trauma treatment, and nobody taught us how to build something different. And that's why I'm building this program, because I believe trauma therapists can change the world. I believe they are changing the world, but not if we keep burning out. Not if the business side of our work is slowly draining us. Something has to change. So I've spent a lot of time thinking about where burnout actually comes from, specifically for trauma therapists. And what I've landed on is there are about 5 distinct causes for burnout. And what I've noticed is that most trauma therapists I talk to are dealing with more than one of these at the same time, which is why I think it can feel so overwhelming and hard to untangle or even hard to get out of. So today I wanted to walk you through all 5. This is essentially the framework that the whole program is built around, and understanding them is the first step in actually doing something about it. So let's go through the 5 causes of trauma therapist burnout. The first one is what I call an unsupportive business model. I want to use a metaphor here because I think it captures what's happening for a lot of us from the business perspective. So imagine you're in a boat and that boat is leaking. It's not dramatically leaking, you're not sinking fast, but there are holes and your boat is taking on water. And you're spending all of your energy bailing the water and you don't have any energy left to plug the holes so you can actually get to where you want to go. That's what an unsupportive business model feels like. Your rates are a little too low. Your cancellation policy exists, but you don't really enforce it all the time. You're on an insurance panel that pays you half of what your expertise is worth, and your schedule doesn't have any breathing room. You're exhausted from bailing. And here's what I see all the time. Therapists who know something needs to change but feel stuck. They have financial commitments. They have clients depending on them. They can't just blow up their practice, jump to private pay, and start over. The risk is just too big. But here's what I want you to hear. You don't have to rebuild the whole boat. You just need to start plugging up some of the holes. And maybe that looks like starting to enforce or redefine your cancellation policy. Maybe it's dropping that really low pay insurance panel. Maybe it's blocking off Fridays so you actually have a day to recover. These aren't dramatic changes, but they can help to stop the leaking. For trauma therapists, there's an added layer here. Our clients have experienced relational trauma. The therapeutic relationship is where the healing happens, but it's also inherently activating for both of us. So when it comes to things like enforcing a cancellation policy or raising your rates, It feels loaded or challenging in a way that it might not for a therapist working with a different population. The guilt is real. The fear of rupture and re-traumatizing our clients is real. But an unsupportive business model doesn't just hurt you. It will eventually impede into the therapeutic relationship. Because if you can't sustain the work, then what happens for your clients? The second cause is emotional and energetic depletion. And if you've been doing trauma work for any length of time, you know exactly what I'm talking about. This is about what happens to your nervous system when you're chronically exposed to traumatic material, when you're holding space for the hardest stories day after day, when you're tracking dissociative parts, navigating crises, staying regulated so your clients can co-regulate with you. It's exhausting, and not in the way that a good night's sleep can fix. What I see with a lot of trauma therapists is that we're really good at holding space for others. We've trained for it, we've practiced it, but we're not as good at building recovery time for ourselves. We stack sessions back to back. We squeeze in an emergency client. We skip lunch. We tell ourselves we'll rest and recover later. Here's what that looks like over time. Compassion fatigue. That feeling where even sessions you used to love now feel like a chore, where you're technically good at your job, but you're not really present anymore. You're just getting through. The tricky thing about depletion is that it often looks productive on the outside. We're still showing up. We're still doing the work, but inside we're running on empty. And eventually our clients will be able to feel that. I remember a moment with a client who was usually one of my last sessions of the week. And she said to me, "You seem tired and bored in our sessions." And that was a huge wake-up call. Because I wasn't bored, but I was tired, and I did not have the energy to do the deeper work that was required. I really appreciated that client's honesty because it was such a huge wake-up call for me, and I knew something needed to change. The third cause is isolation. And this one's sneaky because private practice by design kind of often means we're working alone. No team, no office colleagues to debrief with after a hard session. No supervisor down the hall, just you in your office or maybe on your screen holding some of the heaviest material there is. And without that support, a few things happen. Imposter syndrome intensifies because you don't have anyone reflecting back that what you're doing is actually really hard and you're doing it well. Emotional fatigue compounds because you're not processing your own reactions anywhere. And maybe you start to feel like you're the only one struggling, when actually most trauma therapists are navigating very similar things. One of the things that surprised me when I ran the beta program of Transform Your Trauma Therapy Practice was how much participants got from just being in a virtual room together. Colleagues named things they were feeling. They weren't alone in feeling it, and they kept saying things like, "Oh, I thought I was the only one who struggled with this." That connection piece turned out to be just as valuable as the content itself. I talk to trauma therapists all the time who are incredibly skilled clinicians, but they feel like they're doing this work in a vacuum. They're supporting everyone else, but there's really not too many people supporting them. Connection is not a luxury for trauma therapists. It's a professional necessity. We need consultation. We need community. We need peer support. We need people who get it. The fourth cause is what I call competence fatigue. This is about the endless pursuit of more training, more certifications, more knowledge. And look, I'm not saying professional development is bad. And if you know me, you know I am obsessed with learning and taking more trainings. But there's a difference between intentional growth and what I see a lot of trauma therapists doing, which is chasing a training or certification from a place of, I'm not good enough yet. Have you noticed this pattern? You take a training, mostly inspired by a client who you feel stuck with, one where you feel like you're not good enough and that you're not really helping them. You take the training and maybe for a minute you feel a little more confident, but then that fades and you're looking for the next one and the next one. You end up with a really impressive list of credentials, right? But still feel lost about what to do with the client in front of you. I've definitely done this. Recently, I was in an intensive with a client and was feeling stuck. And immediately my mind went to, I don't know how to help her. I need to get trained in DBR. which is deep brain reorienting. Luckily, I realized in that moment that I was no longer in the session with my client. I was in my head trying to figure out how to get to Europe to take the next DBR training. When I recognized it, I took a deep breath and I reconnected with myself and my client. I got curious about what was happening, and then I went into my internal toolbox and I found that I did have ways that I could support her in moving this work forward. The thing about competence fatigue is that it's exhausting and expensive. You're always trying to be better, but never feeling good enough. And often the trainings you're taking aren't really even aligned with where you actually want to go in your career. They're just the next thing that you hope will make you feel a little bit more competent or a little bit better therapist. Having a clear career path can be helpful with competence fatigue. I do want to get trained in DBR someday, but I'm not running to Europe because of fear that I'm incompetent. It is part of my long-term goal of career development, but I know if I'm going to invest that amount of time and money in getting a new training like that, I need to be at my full capacity to do that. Here's what I'd really love for you to take in, though. Your relational skills as a trauma therapist are more valuable than any training or certification anyone offers. Learning how to rely on those skills in the moments when you're feeling not good enough is so important. Feeling competent is an antidote to burnout. I've provided consultation to hundreds of clinicians at this point, and I universally see incredibly competent relational professionals who get stuck, not because they don't know enough, but because they are stuck in a I'm not good enough mindset, and that's what burns them out. The fifth cause I'm naming here is professional stagnation, and this one's common among more experienced trauma therapists. This is what happens when you've evolved as a clinician. Your interests have deepened or shifted, you have expertise that you're not fully utilizing or sharing, but your practice is kind of looking the same as it did 5 or 10 years ago. It's not that the work isn't working, it's that you've hit a ceiling and you're ready for something more. And maybe you've been feeling kind of uninspired by the weekly therapy session model. Maybe you're more curious about helping clients go deeper with intensives, or expanding into group work, or teaching or providing consultation to other clinicians. Maybe you've developed a specialized knowledge base and you want to actually do something with it, but you don't know how to expand while maintaining what you've already built. This was me about 2 years ago. I love my work with clients, but I kept feeling I needed more time to help them go further and help them resolve their symptoms. And that's when I started exploring intensives. And honestly, that exploration is part of what led me to create this program, because I realized I wasn't the only one feeling this way. What I hear from therapists experiencing professional stagnation is something like, I still love being a therapist, just not in this way. Or, I feel like I have so much more to offer, but I don't know how to get there. Or, I want to help my clients heal and I'm feeling trapped in a 50-minute insurance model. That restless feeling, it's not a problem and it's not burnout in the traditional sense, although it can lead there if you ignore it long enough. It's information that you're ready to grow, that your practice needs to evolve just as much as you have. So those are the 5 causes that I've identified: the unsupportive business model, emotional and energetic depletion, isolation, competence fatigue, and professional stagnation. This is the framework behind everything I'm building with Transform Your Trauma Therapy Practice, because I think burnout is conquerable. The way most of us were taught to build practices really doesn't account for the intensity of trauma work, and until we address that, we're going to keep losing good therapists. And we cannot afford to lose them. The world needs people who can hold what trauma survivors carry, who have the training and the skills to work relationally with them, and who actually want to do this work and are good at it. Because trauma therapists can change the world, and they are changing the world like every day. But trauma therapists deserve to have sustainable careers. They deserve to be compensated fairly for their expertise, and they deserve not to burn out after 5 years in the profession just when they're getting good. And that's why I'm doing this. That's the why behind all the module development and the Claude tutorials and the struggles I've been sharing in the series. So the Transform Your Trauma Therapy Practice is an 8-week group coaching program where we work on all 5 of these areas. We rebuild your business foundation, we plug the holes in your boat, We address the energetic piece so your schedule actually supports your nervous system. We build community so you're not doing this alone. And we help you figure out where you want to go and how to get there. If what I've talked about today resonates with you and you want support in actually making some of these changes, there is a waitlist link in the description. The next cohort will launch in early 2026, so get on the list if you want to hear about it when enrollment opens and get the early bird discount. But whether you join the program or not, I hope this episode gave you something useful. Even if it's just being able to name what's happening for you. Like, this is an unsupportive business model problem, or I'm feeling professionally stagnated. It can take it out of the something's wrong with me category and put it into, oh, this is kind of a solvable problem. Because it is solvable. You don't have to keep working in the way that depletes you. There is another way. And I'm going to keep building this program and sharing the process because I do really believe that. If this was helpful, I'd appreciate if you'd hit like and subscribe. I'm continuing this series. In the next episode, I'll be back with more behind-the-scenes stuff. Maybe I'll talk about the module I'm working on now, which is caseload and schedule optimization, which is fun. Let me know in the comments which of these 5 causes of burnout resonated the most with you, and share if I missed one that you've been experiencing. I'm genuinely curious, and I do read all the comments. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.